Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today into something I think we can all relate to, the power of writing things down.
Absolutely.
I've got some fascinating excerpts here from The Power of Writing It Down, a book by Allison Fallon.
Oh, I've heard good things about that one.
Me too. And I think this deep dive is going to give us some really cool insights. We're going to explore how writing can be transformative, like way beyond just creative expression.
It's more than just writing a good story, isn't it?
Exactly. Okay, so Fallon starts by talking about this thing she calls the hang-up.
Interesting.
It's that feeling that things just aren't quite right.
Yeah.
Like there's something you need to express, but you haven't yet.
I feel like everyone's experienced that at some point.
Totally. And we often try to ignore it, right? Distract ourselves.
Oh, yeah. Anything to avoid that feeling.
But Fallon says we shouldn't run from the hang-up.
No.
We should see it as an invitation.
An invitation to what?
To listen to that inner voice, that's what she says. To figure out what's trying to get out.
That makes sense. Instead of silencing it, give it space.
Exactly. Okay, so then Fallon takes it a step further. She starts talking about how words themselves have power.
I'm listening.
She uses all these examples, like how God spoke the world into existence, or the impact of words from leaders throughout history.
Yeah. Words can definitely be influential.
Big time. And it's not just grand stuff like that either. Think about positive affirmations.
Oh, true.
That whole industry is based on the idea that words can change your life.
Mm.
And it's a huge industry.
It is. Clearly, people believe in the power of words.
They do. And Fallon also talks about the importance of words in ceremonies and rituals, or even just personal messages. Like a note from a loved one can totally turn your day around, right?
Yeah, it can.
So it's clear that words have power. But then there's the whole issue of change.
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
We've all been there trying to stick to a new diet or a workout routine. It's hard.
So hard. Why do you think that is?
Well, Fallon says it's because we're often battling against these ingrained pathways in our brains.
So it's like our brains are stuck in a rut.
Kind of. We're so used to doing things a certain way that it takes a lot of effort to change.
That makes sense. But where does writing come in?
That's what I was wondering. How can writing actually help us overcome these ingrained patterns?
Well, Fallon noticed something really interesting with her clients. She works with a lot of authors, and she saw how the act of writing was impacting their lives in unexpected ways.
Really? Like what?
For instance, lots of them said their relationships got better.
Their relationships from writing.
It seems that way. They were able to communicate more clearly after writing down their thoughts and feelings. Get it all out on paper first.
Interesting. Like a pre-conversation conversation.
Yeah. And some people even had sudden breakthroughs, like with their finances or something.
Wow. So writing helped them solve problems they'd been stuck on.
It seems so, like the writing process just unlocked something in their minds.
Okay, that's pretty amazing.
Mhm.
But is there any actual science to back this up?
There is. Fallon actually brings in a lot of research to support what she's saying.
Perfect, because I was going to ask about that.
She talks about Dr. James Pennebaker, who's done tons of research on the benefits of expressive writing.
Okay, expressive writing, what does that mean exactly?
It's not about writing a polished essay or anything. It's about getting your thoughts and feelings down on paper. Raw, messy, whatever comes out.
Got it. So what did Pennebaker find?
He found that just 20 minutes of writing a day for 4 days can measurably improve your mood.
Wait, seriously? That's it?
That's what the research shows.
That's wild. So it's not about writing for hours on end, just a little bit each day can make a difference.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, it's not relying on medication or anything like that, just the act of writing itself.
I love that. Okay,
Yeah.
so Pennebaker's research is pretty compelling. But were there any other studies that Fallon mentioned?
Oh, yeah, for sure. She talks about Michael White and David Epstein, who developed something called narrative therapy.
Narrative therapy.
It's all about the power of storytelling, how it can help us heal and make sense of our experiences.
I can see how that would be helpful.
Mm.
Everyone loves a good story, right?
Right. And Fallon even brings in the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, who studies how the mind can change the brain.
Oh, wow. I've heard his name before.
He's fascinating, and his research shows that our thoughts and beliefs actually have a physical impact on our brains.
That's powerful stuff.
It is, and this ties into another book that Fallon mentions, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Have you heard of it?
I have. It's about how trauma can affect us physically, right?
Exactly. And van der Kolk talks about how writing can be a way to process and heal from trauma. He has this technique called rescripting, where you essentially rewrite traumatic memories with a more empowering ending.
It's heavy, but also really hopeful.
It is, and it just shows how powerful writing can be. But I know what some of our listeners might be thinking. Hold on, I'm not a writer.
Yeah, I can hear them saying that now. I'm not a writer either.
Right. And Fallon actually addresses that directly. She even mentions an article by Joseph Epstein in the New York Times where he argues that not everyone should write a book.
That's probably true.
Right. But Fallon's point is that this isn't about publishing a bestseller. It's about the personal benefits of writing. Even if it's just for yourself, no one else has to see it.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not about becoming a professional author. It's about creating a personal writing practice.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. But is there any research that actually supports this idea of a personal writing practice?
There is. Fallon mentions a study by Dr. Stephanie Pispera that looked at the impact of writing on job seekers.
Oh, interesting. What did they find?
They focused on people who'd recently lost their jobs and the ones who wrote about their emotions after being laid off. They were more likely to find new jobs.
Wait, really?
Mhm.
So, like, processing their feelings through writing actually helped them in their job search?
That's what it seems like. The researchers think that writing helped them release all that pent-up negativity so they could show up more positively to interviews.
Wow, that's fascinating. It's amazing how even short bursts of writing can have a real impact.
It is. So it's not about spending hours crafting the perfect prose. It's about creating space for writing, even if it's just a few minutes a day.
And that's something we can all do, right? No matter how busy we are.
Exactly. And Fallon talks about the importance of having physical, calendar, and even mental space for writing.
Okay, let's unpack that. What does she mean by physical space?
hmm
Like having a dedicated writing desk or something?
Well, yes, that can help, but it's also about making that space feel personal and inviting. Fallon even tells a story about how she redesigned her apartment during a tough time, and it actually helped her feel more grounded and focused.
Wow. So our environment really can affect how we feel and how we write.
Definitely. And then there's calendar space, which, let's be honest, is hard to come by these
Oh,
days.
yeah. We're all so busy. How do we actually make time for writing?
Fallon says we have to be intentional. Look at your calendar and ask yourself, what am I spending my time on? Is it really aligned with my values?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of life and forget what's important.
Totally. And by identifying those misalignments, you can start reclaiming your time, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes for writing.
That feels doable. Okay, what about mental space? What does that even mean?
That's about quieting the mental chatter,
Yeah.
just sitting and observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment.
It sounds like meditation almost.
It is similar. It's about creating that stillness within so you can hear what's trying to come out.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about creating space for writing, but what about actually getting started? Any tips for overcoming that initial hurdle, the blank page staring back at you?
Oh, yeah. Fallon has this really cool tool she calls the infinity prompt.
The infinity prompt. Tell me more.
Well, it's pretty simple, but it can be really powerful. You start with the facts of a situation, just the objective details.
So, like, if I was writing about an argument with a friend, the fact would be that we disagreed, not why I think we disagreed.
Exactly, just the neutral facts. Then you move on to your thoughts about those facts.
So that's where I could say, I think my friend was being insensitive.
Yep. That's your interpretation of the situation. And finally, you explore your feelings about those thoughts.
Okay. So I might say, I feel hurt and betrayed because I thought my friend cared more about my feelings.
Exactly. And Fallon emphasizes that this simple framework can help us see situations more objectively, uncover unhelpful thought patterns, and recognize how those memorized feelings are driving our reactions.
Wow, it's like holding up a mirror to your own mind, right? Seeing how your thoughts and feelings are shaping your reality.
It is. But Fallon warns us that when we start to write honestly, we might bump into some drama.
Drama, like writer's block.
That can be part of it, but she actually distinguishes between two types of drama: outside drama and inside drama.
Ooh, intriguing. Let's start with outside drama. What's that all about?
Think of all the external things that can disrupt your writing routine. Unexpected phone calls, work deadlines, life stuff.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. Life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it.
It really does. Fallon shares this hilarious story about trying to carve out time for writing, And then all this crazy stuff happens. Her sister has a heart attack, a tornado hits her old neighborhood, and her husband loses business due to the pandemic, all in the same week.
Wow, that's some bad timing. But it doesn't sound like she's saying writing caused these things, right?
No, not at all. It's more about how focusing on writing made her realize how many distractions were already present in her life. Kind of like how a ray of sunshine coming through the window suddenly makes you see all the dust particles.
Ah, I get it. It's about becoming aware of how easily our attention gets pulled in a million directions,
Exactly. And then there's the inside drama.
which I'm guessing is a whole other beast.
It can be. This is about all the intense emotions, thoughts, and memories that surface when we start to write honestly. The stuff we usually try to bury deep down.
That sounds a little scary, to be honest.
Yeah.
Why would anyone want to dredge up all that negativity?
I know, it can feel daunting. But Fallon argues that it's crucial for growth and healing. She compares it to an earthquake releasing energy intense in the moment, but ultimately it creates space for something new to emerge.
Okay, that's a powerful image. So it's about acknowledging and processing those difficult emotions instead of letting them fester.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Fallon emphasizes that we have control over the volume dial of our own drama.
Meaning we can pace ourselves.
Yes. Dip your toes in slowly or dive right in. It's up to you.
That's reassuring. So both types of drama, outside and inside, can be valuable teachers in this writing process.
They absolutely can be. Outside drama reveals our distractions, helping us be more mindful, and inside drama. It forces us to confront our deepest fears and insecurities, which can lead to greater authenticity in our writing.
That's a good way to look at it. So it's not about avoiding drama altogether, it's about understanding what it can teach us.
Precisely. And that's a big part of what Fallon calls life practice. You know, those challenges in our writing often mirror the challenges we face in our lives in general.
That makes sense. If I struggle with self-doubt in my writing, I'm probably struggling with it in other areas of my life too.
Exactly. So by working through those issues on the page, we can make progress in our lives as well.
That's a cool idea. It's like a training ground for personal growth.
It is. And you know what Fallon says is one of the most powerful tools we have for navigating these challenges?
What's that?
The power of questions.
Ooh, questions. I'm all about asking good questions. How does she see them playing a role in writing?
She believes questions are the driving force behind all great writing. They're what hook us, intrigue us, keep us reading.
It's a good mystery that you can't put down.
Yes. And Fallon says this applies to our own writing, too. If we're stuck, maybe it's because we're not asking the right questions.
So instead of trying to force the words out, maybe we should step back and ask, what am I really trying to explore here? What questions am I grappling with?
Exactly. Fallon shares this great story about a writer named Cindy who was working on a project about children who'd been forgotten by society.
Oh, wow. That's a heavy topic.
It is, and as she went deeper into the project, Cindy realized that the questions driving her work were, who will remember those our culture wants to forget? And who protects the weak and vulnerable?
Those are powerful questions.
Yeah.
I can see how they would shape her entire approach to the project.
They did. Fallon points out that by uncovering those driving questions, we can better understand our own motivations and intentions as writers.
So it's not just about writing the story. It's about understanding why we're writing it.
Exactly. And Fallon believes that asking better questions in our writing can help us ask better questions in our lives, too.
That's an idea worth pondering. So if I'm not happy with the answers I'm getting in life, maybe it's time to re-examine the questions I'm asking.
I love that. You know, Fallon also talks about the importance of getting limbic when we write.
Getting limbic. Okay, now you've got my attention. What does that mean?
It's about accessing the limbic system of the brain, which handles emotions, motivation, and memory. You know, all that good stuff that fuels powerful writing.
Right, those are pretty essential ingredients.
Right.
But how do we actually get limbic? Does Fallon have any tips for activating this part of the brain?
She does. She suggests things like walking in nature, disconnecting from technology, really anything that helps you get out of your head and into your body.
It's like shifting from overthinking to feeling, right?
Exactly. Fallon tells a story about a writer's retreat she led in Kentucky. There was limited technology, and they mostly got around by walking.
Sounds like a digital detox writer's retreat.
Right, and guess what? The participants experienced this surge of creativity because they were able to access that limbic state more easily.
I can see how that would happen. When you're not constantly bombarded with information, you have more space for those deeper emotions to emerge.
Totally. And it's those deeper emotions that can make writing so powerful.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. Creating space for stillness and reflection seems to be key.
It is. It's about giving ourselves permission to just be present, to feel deeply, and to express those feelings authentically.
But as we both know, that can be easier said than done, especially when that inner critic starts piping up.
Mm, tell me about it. My inner critic can be brutal. Any advice from Fallon on how to silence that voice of self-doubt? Her mantra is, right now, edit later. She's a firm believer in separating the creative process from the editing process.
That makes sense. Gives
That's
yourself
all.
permission to be messy and imperfect in that first draft.
Exactly. And she points out that this applies to other areas of life too, not just writing.
Oh, totally. So many of us get stuck in that perfectionism trap, constantly editing ourselves before we even get started.
It's a recipe for procrastination. Fallon encourages us to embrace the freedom of creating without judgment. Save the editing for later. It's like giving yourself permission to play.
I love that. Play. It takes the pressure off, you know?
It does. And she says this can lead to greater joy and freedom, not just in our writing, but in our lives.
It's about letting go of that need to be perfect all the time and trusting the process.
Exactly. And that leads us to another one of Fallon's key ideas, developing a narrator voice in our writing.
Ooh, a narrator voice. I like the sound of that. Tell me more.
Well, she's talking about that wise, compassionate voice that observes and comments on the events of a story. You know, the one who gives us context and meaning.
It's like having a guide to help us make sense of the chaos.
Exactly. And Fallon believes that we all have that narrator voice within us.
Really? So it's not just something that exists in books and movies.
She says we all have this inner source of wisdom and insight that can help us navigate life's ups and downs.
That's a beautiful idea. But how do we tap into that voice? It seems like it would be easy to lose it in the noise of everyday life.
It can be. Fallon suggests some exercises that can help. First, visualize yourself as the protagonist of your own life story.
Interesting. So, like, really own your experience and see yourself as the main character.
Yes. And then imagine that wise, compassionate narrator observing your life. What would they say about your experiences? What insights would they offer?
It's like stepping outside of yourself and getting a different perspective.
Exactly. And then try writing from that narrator's perspective, even if it feels a bit weird at first.
So it's about practicing that voice until it becomes more natural.
Yep. And Fallon emphasizes the benefits of developing this strong narrator voice.
Right.
She says it can help us gain greater perspective, find meaning in challenging situations, and even cultivate a sense of calm and confidence when we're feeling uncertain.
Those are some amazing benefits. It sounds like developing this narrative voice could be really transformative.
It can be, and it's just one of the many gifts that writing can offer.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I'm already feeling inspired to pull out my journal and start writing.
Me too. And there's still so much more to explore. When we come back, we'll delve deeper into Fallon's ideas about how writing can help us process emotions, overcome self-doubt, and really tap into our most authentic selves. It's a great framework.
I'm ready. Hit me with it.
All right, so it's got 3 parts: facts, thoughts, and feelings.
Facts, thoughts, and feelings.
Okay. You start with the facts of the situation.
Got it. Just
Yes.
the straight up objective facts.
Yep. No interpretations, just the neutral details.
So, like, if I'm writing about getting into an argument with someone,
Okay, yeah.
the fact would just be that we disagreed.
Exactly. You wouldn't get into why you think you disagreed, just the fact that you did.
Okay, I see. So then what?
Then you move on to your thoughts about the facts.
Ah, okay. So that's where I could say, I think the other person was being totally unreasonable or whatever.
Exactly. That's your interpretation of the situation, your thoughts about what went down.
And thoughts aren't always accurate, right?
That's the thing. We often mistake our thoughts for facts.
That's so true.
And that's why this exercise can be so helpful.
It makes sense.
Mm.
So facts, then thoughts, then what's the last part?
Feelings. You explore your feelings about those thoughts.
Ah, okay. So I might say, I felt hurt and angry because I thought this person was my friend or something like that.
Exactly. You're connecting your emotional response to the thoughts you're having about the situation.
And that's what the infinity prompt helps us do. See the whole picture.
It does. It helps us separate the facts from our thoughts and feelings about those facts, which, as we know, can be pretty messy sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Our thoughts and feelings can definitely get us into trouble.
For sure. But Fallon says that's all part of the process. In fact, she warns that when we start writing honestly, we might encounter something she calls drama.
Ooh, drama. Does that mean like writer's block?
Well, that can be part of it, but she actually divides drama into 2 categories: outside drama and inside drama.
Okay, I'm curious. What's outside drama?
Think of it as all the external stuff that can interrupt your writing routine.
Okay, so like phone calls and emails.
Yeah, those are definitely culprits. Or maybe a work deadline suddenly pops up, or a family emergency.
Ugh. Yeah, life has a way of doing that, doesn't it?
It really does. Fallon tells this funny story about finally carving out time to write, and then her week just explodes. Her sister has a heart attack, a tornado hits her old neighborhood, and her husband's business takes a major hit because of the pandemic.
Oh my gosh. Talk about bad timing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like she's saying writing caused these things, right?
No, not at all. It's more about how the act of focusing on writing just made her super aware of all the distractions that were already present in her life.
Ah, okay, like suddenly you see all the dust bunnies when the sun shines through the window?
Exactly. It just highlights how easily our attention gets pulled in a million different
A
directions.
million and one, probably. So that's outside drama. What about the inside drama?
Ah, that one's a little more intense. Think of it as all the intense emotions, thoughts, and memories that surface when we start writing, honestly.
Okay, so like the stuff we usually try to avoid thinking about.
Pretty much, it's the stuff we bury deep down because it's uncomfortable or painful.
I can see how that could be pretty intimidating. Why would anyone willingly dredge up all that negativity?
It's definitely not always pleasant. But Fallon argues that it's a crucial part of growth and healing. She compares it to an earthquake releasing energy. It can be intense in the moment, but ultimately it creates space for something new to emerge.
Okay, I like that analogy. So it's about acknowledging and processing those difficult emotions instead of trying to pretend they don't exist.
Exactly. And Fallon emphasizes that you don't have to face it all at once. You have control over the volume dial of your own drama.
So we can pace ourselves, start with the things that feel a little less scary, and then gradually work our way up to the more intense stuff.
Exactly. And she also suggests having a good support system in place. Whether it's a therapist, a trusted friend, or a support group, having people you can talk to can make a big difference.
That's a good point. It's a reminder that we don't have to do this alone. So it seems like both types of drama, outside and inside, can actually be valuable teachers in this whole writing process.
They absolutely can. Outside drama helps us be more aware of our distractions and how we're spending our precious time and energy. And inside drama, it forces us to confront those deeper fears and insecurities, which can ultimately lead to greater authenticity in our writing.
It's about learning from our experiences, both the external and the internal. Okay, so we've talked about the infinity prompt and how it can help us understand our thoughts and feelings. But how does this all tie into writing?
Well, Fallon believes that the challenges we face in our writing often mirror the challenges we face in our lives in general. She calls this the life practice.
So like if I struggle with self-doubt in my writing, I'm probably struggling with self-doubt in other areas of my life too.
Exactly. So, by working through those issues in our writing, we can actually make progress in our lives too.
It's like writing becomes this training ground for personal growth. I like that.
You too. And Fallon says that one of the most powerful tools we have for navigating both those challenges in writing and in life is the power of questions.
Ooh, questions. I'm a huge believer in the power of asking good questions. How does she see questions playing a role in the writing process?
She believes they're the driving force behind all great writing. Think about it. Questions hook us, intrigue us, make us want to keep reading.
It's true. Like when a friend says they have a juicy secret, but they won't tell you until later, you're just dying to know, right?
Exactly. That's the power of a well-placed question. And Fallon argues that the same principle applies to our own writing.
So if we're feeling stuck, maybe we need to step back and ask ourselves some better questions.
Exactly. Instead of forcing words onto the page, pause and consider, what am I really trying to explore here? What questions am I grappling with?
That's a good point.
Fallon tells a story about a writer named Cindy who is working on a project about children who have been kind of forgotten by society.
Oh, wow. That's a tough topic.
It is. And as Cindy went deeper into the project, she realized that the questions driving her work were, who will remember those our culture wants to forget? And who protects the weak and vulnerable?
Those are powerful questions.
They are. And Fallon says that by uncovering those driving questions, we can gain a deeper understanding of our own motivations and intentions as writers.
So it's not just about writing the story, it's about understanding why we're writing it.
Exactly. And Fallon believes that by asking better questions in our writing, we can start asking better questions in our lives as well.
I love that idea. If I'm not happy with the answers I'm getting, maybe it's time to re-examine the questions I'm asking.
You know, Fallon also talks about the importance of something she calls getting limbic when we write.
Getting limbic. Okay, that sounds intriguing. What does that mean?
Well, it's about accessing that part of our brain, the limbic system, that handles emotions, motivation, and memory.
So, like the emotional center of the brain.
Exactly. And all that stuff is super important for powerful writing, right?
Totally. But how do we actually get limbic? Any tips from Fallon on how to activate that part of the brain?
She does. She suggests things like walking in nature, disconnecting from technology, basically anything that helps us get out of our heads and into our body.
Ah, I get it. It's like shifting from overthinking to feeling.
Exactly. She tells this story about a writer's retreat she led in Kentucky. They had limited technology and everyone got around by walking.
Sounds idyllic, like a digital detox writer's retreat.
Right. And because of that, the participants were able to access that limbic state more easily. They experienced a surge of creativity and were able to tap into deeper emotional honesty in their writing.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. When you're constantly bombarded with information and stimulation, it's hard to connect with those deeper emotions.
It is. So creating space for stillness and quiet reflection is key.
It's about giving ourselves permission to be present, to feel deeply, and to express those feelings authentically through our writing.
Exactly. But as we both know, that's often easier said than done, especially when that pesky inner critic starts to creep in.
Ugh, don't even get me started on the inner critic. Mine can be brutal. Did Fallon offer any advice on dealing with self-doubt?
Oh, absolutely. She's a big believer in separating the creative process from the editing process. Her mantra is write now, edit later.
That makes sense. Don't overthink it, just get the words down on paper.
Exactly. And she says this applies to other areas of life too, not just writing.
Oh, for sure. We can get so bogged down in perfectionism that we never actually get anything done.
Totally. So Fallon encourages us to embrace that freedom of creating without judgment, save the editing and refining for later.
That's like giving yourself permission to play, right?
Exactly. And she believes this approach, write now, edit later, can lead to greater joy and freedom, not just in our writing, but in our lives in general.
It's about letting go of the pressure to get it right all the time and just enjoying the process.
I love that. And speaking of process, that leads us to another one of Fallon's key ideas, developing a narrator voice in our writing.
Ooh, a narrator voice.
Mhm.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Okay, so think about the voice in a story that observes and comments on the events, the one that provides context and meaning.
Ah, okay. Like the voiceover in a movie.
Exactly. And Fallon believes that we all have this narrator voice within us.
Wait, really? So it's not just something that exists in books and movies.
Nope. She says we all have this inner source of wisdom and insight that can help us make sense of our lives.
Wow, that's a powerful idea. But it seems like it would be easy to lose touch with that voice in the midst of everyday life.
It definitely can be. But Fallon offers some exercises that can help us connect with that inner narrator. First, try visualizing yourself as the main character in your own life story.
So, like, really own your experiences and see yourself as the hero of your own journey.
Yes, exactly. And then imagine that wise, compassionate narrator observing your life. What would they say about your experiences? What insights would they offer?
It's like getting a different perspective on your own life.
It is. And then try writing from that narrator's perspective, even if it feels a little weird at first.
So it's about practicing that voice until it becomes more familiar.
You got it. And Fallon points out that there are some really cool benefits to developing this strong narrator voice.
Like what?
Well, she says it can help us gain greater perspective on challenges, find meaning in seemingly random events, and even cultivate a sense of calm and confidence in the face of uncertainty.
Wow, those are some amazing benefits. It sounds like developing that narrator voice could be a real game changer.
It can be, and it's just one of the many gifts that writing can offer.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I'm already feeling inspired to pull out my journal and start writing.
Me too. And guess what? There's still so much more to uncover. When we come back, we'll explore how writing can help us process difficult emotions, overcome self-doubt, and really tap into our most authentic selves. It really is.
You know, it's interesting. We've been talking about all the benefits of writing, but what about Fallon herself? Like, what keeps her motivated to keep writing?
That's a great question, and actually she talks about that in the book.
She does. What does she say?
Well, she shares this anecdote about a workshop she was leading with another writer named Melody Miles. Melody was having trouble figuring out the core message of her book.
I can relate to that. Sometimes it feels like you're just swimming in a sea of ideas and you can't find the shore.
Exactly. So Fallon helped Melody identify three key things: the transformation she was personally seeking, the questions driving her work, and the destination she envisioned for her story.
Hmm. Those are some pretty deep questions. I bet that wasn't an easy exercise.
It wasn't. But Fallon says that by going through that process, Melody was able to understand her own motivations on a much deeper level.
That makes sense. It's like once you understand your why,
Yeah.
everything else becomes clearer.
Exactly. And Fallon uses Melody's story to illustrate a bigger point about writing. It's often about so much more than just conveying information or telling a story. It's about connecting with our deepest selves and sharing our unique perspective with the world.
I love that, finding our voice and using it to make a difference.
Exactly. And she emphasizes that this doesn't require fame or fortune or anything like that. It's about showing up authentically and connecting with the people around us, even in small ways.
It's about making a difference in the world, one heart at a time.
Beautifully said. And Fallon tells another story about a writer named Connie who was trying to help a friend struggling with addiction. Connie felt helpless and didn't know how to support her friend.
That's a really tough situation to be in.
It is. But through writing, Connie was able to gain some perspective. She realized that she had been letting her friend's negativity drag her down, and she needed to set some boundaries to protect her own well-being.
That's a good reminder that sometimes the most important writing we do is for ourselves.
Absolutely. It can be a way to process our own emotions, figure out what we're thinking and feeling, and make tough decisions.
It's about giving ourselves permission to be honest with ourselves, even when it's uncomfortable.
Yes. And in doing so, we can create healthier relationships with ourselves and with the people around us.
One thing I've been thinking about is how overwhelming the world can feel these days.
Hmm.
With social media and the 24-hour news cycle and everything else, it's just constant information overload. Did Fallon have any advice on how to deal with that?
She does. She talks about how our obsession with social media and needing external validation is actually disconnecting us from our true selves.
It's like we're all trying to present this perfect, curated version of ourselves to the world, but it's exhausting, and it doesn't feel real.
It doesn't. And Fallon encourages us to break free from that cycle and reconnect with our inner voice, the voice that gets drowned out by all the noise.
That sounds amazing, but it's easier said than done. Like, how do we actually do that?
She has some practical suggestions like limit your time on social media, prioritize face-to-face interactions, spend time in nature, and do things that bring you joy. Simple things, but they can make a big difference.
It's about creating space for silence and solitude so you can hear your own inner wisdom.
Exactly. And she believes writing can be a powerful tool for that reconnection.
Ah, that makes sense. It's a way to step back, reflect, and process our experiences without feeling the pressure to perform or get validation from others.
Exactly. It's about writing because you love to write, because it helps you understand yourself better, and because it allows you to express your unique voice in the world.
I love that. This has been an incredible conversation. I feel like we've explored the power of writing from so many different angles.
We have. And I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to pick up a pen and paper and start writing themselves.
Me too. So,
Yeah.
as we wrap up our deep dive into the power of writing, is there one final question we can leave our listeners with? Something to ponder as they embark on their own writing adventures.
I love that. How about this? What legacy do you want your words to leave on the world?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's about writing with intention. It's about recognizing that our words have power and that we can use them to make a positive impact.
Exactly. It's about using our voices to create a more meaningful and connected world.
That is a beautiful thought. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the power of writing. We hope you've enjoyed the conversation and that you feel inspired to put some of these ideas into practice. Happy writing, everyone.